Chapter 27. Emma. Emma smiled as she checked another item off the list. William's wound was officially healed. She had removed the bandage last night. Carrie had agreed to make the cake as she was a better baker than Emma, and William had spoken with the pastor yesterday about using the church for the wedding after church on Sunday, to which he'd agreed. That left only flowers and the dress. She planned to take Jenny to the nearby wild sage fields tomorrow and gather flowers to decorate with, so that only left the alterations. She and Kate started them a few days ago, but it was taking longer than Emma had expected to get the dress looking just right. However, she was certain today they would finish it. With a skip in her step, Emma grabbed her sewing basket and the dress and headed out the door to Kate's house. Jenny and Benjamin were in school, and Carrie had traveled into town earlier to get the few ingredients they didn't have for the cake, so the walk was quiet this morning. Emma used the time to revisit her checklist to make sure everything was in order.
"Morning, Emma."
The voice stopped her feet and pulled her back to the present. Emma turned to see Carl a few feet behind her. Her good mood dissipated like a late morning fog, and she struggled to keep a smile on her face. Though once her friend, Carl hadn't taken kindly to William capturing her affection. Thankfully, he had been around little since William returned, which had pleased Emma. Though she had once enjoyed Carl's company, the few times they had crossed paths recently had been uncomfortable and stilted. "Hello, Carl. How are you today?" Emma tried her best to make her voice sound chipper and friendly.
"I'm glad I ran into you."
He paused, shoved his hands into his pockets, and studied the ground a moment before meeting her eyes again.
"I wanted to apologize for my behavior. I had no right to lay claim to you, and I'm sorry."
Emma blinked at him, unsure of what to say. She certainly hadn't expected this turn of events.
"I wanted to inform you I've been corresponding with a woman out east. She seems nice by her letters, and I'm considering bringing her out here."
"Like mail order?" Emma asked. Carl nodded.
"It worked for Jessie and Kate, so I figured perhaps it could work for me too."
While that wasn't exactly how Jessie and Kate had ended up together, Emma felt no need to correct him. "That's wonderful, Carl." This time, Emma didn't have to feign happiness. She was glad he had found someone. He wasn't the man for her, but he deserved a good woman. "I'll be praying that everything works out for you."
"Thank you."
His eyes dropped to the ground again.
"Well, anyway, I just wanted to let you know that, and to tell you I won't be bothering you anymore."
He flashed an awkward wave and then turned around and walked off. Emma watched him go and waved when he glanced back once. Then she thanked God for answered prayers and continued to Kate's house. The Jennings house was much smaller than the house William was building, but Kate had made it homey with her personal touches. "Come on in." Kate smiled as she opened the door. "I just set some water to boiling to make tea." "Tea sounds amazing. How are you feeling today?" Emma glanced at her friend as she sat down in Kate's kitchen and placed her sewing bag on the floor beside her. "Big," Kate chuckled as she filled 2 mugs with hot water. "I have already had to let out 2 of my dresses. I'm afraid I'll have nothing to wear soon." "We could work on a maternity dress together after we finish my wedding dress." Emma took the tea Kate offered and blew on it, watching the steam curl into floaty wisps of air. "And after the wedding, of course." "That would be wonderful. I don't feel prepared at all." Kate looked around the small house. "I mean, we don't even have a second bedroom." "Well, William told me he and Jessie plan to enlarge your homestead as soon as they finish ours." "Really? That would be wonderful." Kate's petite shoulders heaved with a hearty sigh. "I know Jessie had hoped for a second story when he built this house, and I know he wants to start making a cradle, but where would we put it? The living room?" Emma inspected the room as she took a sip of her tea and smiled at Kate's lack of knowledge. "You would keep the cradle in your room for a time. The baby will be small for a good 6 months." Kate smiled over the rim of her cup. That is true. I'm so glad you and I became friends. You have younger siblings and can tell me all about how to raise a baby. I only had a brother and we were very close in age, so I don't remember when he was young. Emma laughed as she thought back over the years. She and Jenny were so far apart in years that she definitely remembered her as a baby getting into everything. Jenny had always been a little handful. I ran into Carl on the way over, Emma said, changing the subject. Kate's eyes widened and her brows inched up her forehead as she took a sip of her tea. How did that go? Interesting. He stopped me to tell me he's been corresponding with a woman back east. Mail-order bride like you. He thinks he might bring her here soon. Well, that's unexpected, but good, right? Absolutely. While I knew William was the man for me, I always felt bad about Carl. I'm delighted he's found someone, and I hope he will be as happy as you and Jessie. Let's just hope she's not some outlaw using mail order as a ruse. Kate laughed, referencing her own crazy experience. Kate had answered a mail-order bride ad, but when she'd arrived, she found out the man she was betrothed to was a criminal. She'd escaped, and thankfully her path crossed with Jessie's, who, to keep her from having to go back east, offered her marriage. Their love only grew from there. Let's hope not. We've had enough excitement for some time. Emma finished her tea and grabbed her bag. Shall we move to the living room and finish this up? Kate nodded and tipped her mug back, finishing the last drop. Emma stepped out of her dress and into the wedding gown. So far, they had adjusted the neckline and added some lace around the bottom edge. Today, Emma hoped to add lace detailing to the sleeves. She pulled out the lace she had found at the mercantile the other day and handed it to Kate, who pinned it to the dress so Emma could stitch it on after she removed the dress. Does it need anything else? Emma turned in a slow circle for Kate to get a full view. Kate narrowed her eyes as she scanned the dress. I don't think so. It looks beautiful, and with your hair pinned up, it will be amazing. Wonderful. Taking care to avoid the pins, Emma removed the dress and handed it to Kate, while she changed back into her other dress. Suddenly, Kate's front door burst open, and a breathless Carrie entered, her blonde hair flying behind her. Emma, come quick. There's something wrong with Jenny. What's wrong with her? Emma quickly finished fastening her dress and tried to tame the fear clawing at her heart. I have no idea. She vomited at school and has some kind of rash. Pa said to come get you. The fear turned to ice and snaked through Emma's veins. Illnesses were never good, but they were often worse when they struck children. Should I come too? Kate asked. No, Emma said forcefully. You need to stay far away and protect your baby. Hopefully it's nothing serious. I'll send word when I can. Forgetting both her dress and her bag, Emma followed Carrie outside and climbed into the wagon beside Samuel and Benjamin. Pa had sent the whole family to get her? This wasn't good. Emma was the first out of the wagon when they arrived at their house. She thundered up the steps, but before she could enter the house, Doc Moore opened the door and closed it behind him. Emma, you can't come in. I think it's scarlet fever. Emma's hand flew to her mouth as her eyes widened. Pa, are you sure? Scarlet fever was the worst sickness they had seen, but it would explain why he had sent everyone to get her. He would have wanted the rest of the family out of the house as quickly as possible in hopes of keeping them from catching the illness. While the fever had spared their town during the last outbreak, stories of the deaths from neighboring towns had reached them. Emma remembered that her pa had said once a household was affected, nearly all the children in the house had gotten sick. I'm almost sure. His voice was grave as he nodded. She has 3 of the symptoms: vomiting, fever, and a rash. You need to do some things for me. Are you listening? Though shocked, Emma managed to nod. She barely registered her siblings joining them on the porch. Good. First, you need to go to the school and ask them to close it down for at least a week. I have no idea where she contracted it, but we need to contain the spreading if possible.
Second, you need to take your brothers and sisters to yours and William's homestead."
"But Pa, it's not finished yet," Emma said.
"It's close enough. See if you can borrow some blankets from some of the neighbors if William doesn't have enough. I understand it won't be the same as your beds, but it will do until Jenny gets better. Or—"
"Is Jenny going to die?" Benjamin's voice trembled with fear. "Don't even think it," Emma replied, as tears filled her eyes. "She will be okay."
"Of course she will," Doc Moore said. "Finally, you'll have to cover the clinic for a few days. I realize you hadn't planned on spending much time there anymore, and this will delay your wedding, but I can't leave Jenny. You'll need to watch yourself, too, all of you. You've been exposed. If you start to feel feverish or get chills or a rash, close the clinic."
"Can I check on her? How will I know if she's okay?" Emma's heart felt like it was breaking in two. Though Jenny was only her sister and not her daughter, she had practically raised her as such. Doc Moore tapped his forehead for a bit as he thought.
"I'll put a white towel in the window to inform you she's okay. If the towel disappears, come in and check on us."
It wasn't a perfect solution, but it would work for now. "If you need anything while you're in there, write it down and we'll leave it on the porch." Emma wanted to say more, but she didn't know what.
"Good idea."
Doc Moore's eyes moved from one child to the next, as if he were memorizing their faces.
"Take care of yourselves. I better get in and check on her."
"Pa," Emma said as he began to close the door. He looked at her, a mixture of questions and fear in his eyes. "Don't forget to pray."
"You too."
And then the door closed in their faces. Emma turned back to the steps, her gait much slower this time. Carrie took one of her hands and Benjamin grabbed the other. Though neither said a word, Emma could feel the fear radiating off both of them.
"I'll go get a horse ready for you,"
Samuel said before hurrying off to the barn.
"What's wrong with Jenny?"
Benjamin turned big eyes up at her. His voice was quieter than Emma had ever heard it. "Pa thinks it's scarlet fever," Emma said. Beside her, Carrie sucked in her breath, but Benjamin was too young to remember the last outbreak.
"I don't understand."
He looked from one girl to the other.
"What's scarlet fever?"
Emma bit her lip as she tried to decide how to explain it so his 12-year-old brain could comprehend it. "It's a sickness, and it's not good. We must pray hard for Jenny. Can you do that?" Benjamin's eyes filled with tears, but he nodded.
"I'll pray every hour."
He bit his bottom lip and glanced away.
"Emma, she's not sick because I got mad at her, is she?"
"Oh, no." Carrie let go of Emma's hand and wrapped her arm around the boy. "You didn't cause Jenny to get sick, Benjamin. This is not your fault." "Sometimes people get sick," Emma said. "It's why Pa became a doctor, to try to help them." Samuel appeared then with one of their horses saddled and ready. "Thank you." Emma took the reins and addressed Samuel. "Go to William. I'll catch up, but I have to do the errands for Pa first." "No, Emma, I want to go with you," Carrie said. Emma shook her head. "There's no room on the horse. I'll be faster alone, and I promise I'll be there soon." Both Carrie and Benjamin looked unconvinced, but they climbed up into the wagon. Samuel flicked the reins and the wagon drove off. Emma spared one final glance at her Pa's place and managed a tight smile when she saw the white towel in the window. Then she grabbed the reins of the chestnut mare and swung up on the saddle. If she hurried, she might reach the school before Margaret Goodman left. If not, she knew where the woman lived. Margaret was just locking the schoolhouse door when Emma rode up. "Hey, Emma." The petite brunette looked up at her, using her hand as a shield against the setting sun. "Did Benjamin or Jenny forget something? She said she wasn't feeling well today, but I thought they got everything before they left." Emma dismounted and walked closer before answering. "No, Pa sent me to tell you that he thinks Jenny has scarlet fever." Margaret's blue eyes widened in fear. "Is he sure?" "He said he was almost sure. He sent me to ask you if any other children have had fevers, chills, or rashes, and to tell you to watch out for those symptoms." Margaret shook her head. "I have noticed none of those symptoms, not even with Jenny, and no one has been absent, but I'll keep my eye on them all." "Thank you. Pa recommended closing the school for at least a week until we're sure no one else gets sick. We'll keep Benjamin home regardless until we are sure he doesn't have it." "I understand." Margaret issued a succinct nod. "I'll be praying for Jenny." Tears pricked Emma's eyes once again, and she thanked Margaret before mounting up again and heading to the clinic. Once there, she found some paper and a pencil and wrote out a brief note. "Doc Moore is tending to a patient with possible scarlet fever. Please be on the lookout for fever, chills, vomiting, and a rash. Emma will tend the clinic in Doc Moore's absence. Should you need care while no one is here, please come to William Cook's homestead." Satisfied, Emma placed the paper in the window and locked up the clinic. She had done all she could for now. The rest was in God's hands. William heard the wagon approach before he actually saw it. He looked up at Jessie, who returned the same questioning gaze. Who in the world could be approaching in such a hurry? The two men walked to the front door, and William glanced at the rifle in the corner. Should he grab it? Before he could decide, the voice of Carrie, Emma's younger sister, carried into the house. "William?" Her voice was shrill and filled with worry. "William, are you here?" His heart plummeted. If Carrie was calling, did that mean something had happened to Emma? Forgetting the gun, he threw open the front door to see Samuel helping Benjamin and Carrie down from the wagon. As soon as her feet hit the ground, Carrie flew into his arms, burying her head against his chest. "Oh, William, she's sick."
"Emma? But I just saw her yesterday."
William blinked in disbelief. What could have happened to Emma so quickly? "No, not Emma." Carrie stepped back and wiped tears from her cheek. "Jenny, Pa says it's scarlet fever."
Scarlet fever? William had been in enough towns to have seen an outbreak of scarlet fever. It was one of the deadliest diseases, mainly because there appeared to be no cure. Doctors would often let blood out of the patients to try to get rid of the infection that way, but for the most part, it meant quarantine and hoping that the child was strong enough to fight it off. "I should go check on Kate." Fear danced in Jesse's eyes as he stepped into the conversation. "That's a good idea. In fact, why don't you stay with her until we know none of the others have it?"
William suggested. Though he appreciated Jesse's help, he didn't want to do anything to jeopardize the health of his friend's baby.
"Are you sure?"
Jesse asked, but William could hear a tiny thread of relief in his voice.
"Yes, of course. Samuel and Benjamin can help me with the final touches around here."
Jesse nodded and hurried over to the tree where his horse stood tied up. In mere seconds, he had the horse untied and was up in the saddle. He flashed a wave and then rode off toward the outskirts of town where he and Kate lived.
"Carrie, it will be okay."
William turned his attention back to the girl.
"Where is Emma?" "She had to do some errands for Pa."
Samuel approached carrying 2 burlap bags. Benjamin trailed slightly behind him, carrying a sack of his own.
"Pa made us gather some clothes before he sent us to get Emma."
He held up the bags.
"Where do you want us to put them?" "Let's take them inside," William said.
Though he didn't have all the furniture yet, he had the space for everyone. With his money, he had opted to build a 3-bedroom house. Samuel nodded and led the way into the house, followed by Benjamin. Carrie and William rounded out the end. Before closing the door, William took one last look around for Emma, but the air was still. He hoped she was okay.
"Okay, Samuel, why don't you and Benjamin set up in this room?"
William opened the door to one of the empty rooms. He had wanted the inside of the house to be a surprise for Emma, but that would not happen now.
"There's no mattress yet, but perhaps we can go to the mercantile in a bit and see what they have. Get some blankets at least." "We're fine sleeping on the floor."
Samuel dropped the 2 burlap bags on the hard ground.
"Speak for yourself,"
Benjamin muttered under his breath. William smiled and shook his head.
No one has to sleep directly on the ground. We'll figure something out.
He led the way to the next room, which was about the same size, but already held a bed, a mirror, and a dresser. This was the room he had been sleeping in.
Carrie, you and Emma can sleep here where I've been staying, and I'll take the last room. It's not an ideal situation with us being unmarried, but surely people will understand.
While I agree that is an issue, I think Jenny dying is a much bigger one, Carrie mumbled. Jenny's dying? Benjamin asked in a squeaky voice. A wet sheen coated his eyes, and William knew tears weren't far behind.
Nobody's saying that.
Samuel put an arm around Benjamin's shoulders and shot Carrie a pointed look.
But Jenny is very sick. We should all pray for her. Yes, that's a great idea,
William hurriedly agreed. He wanted to change the subject from the uncomfortable topic of Jenny's possible death.
Let's do that now.
The four formed a small circle, and William bowed his head.
Lord, we come to you now, thanking you for family and lifting up one of our own. Please be with Jenny and help heal her. Give Doc Moore the wisdom to make the right choices for her care. Please keep the illness from spreading to us and the rest of the town.
He paused and took a deep breath.
And please keep Emma safe in her errands and bring her back to us. Amen.
The children echoed their amens and then traded fearful stares. It wasn't that they didn't believe God could heal Jenny, but they knew from the death of their mother that sometimes God didn't choose that option. As William tried to think of what to say to cheer them up, the pounding of a horse's hooves reached his ears.
Emma,
he breathed and hurried to the front door. Without checking first, he flung the door open to see Emma sliding off her mare and tying the reins to a slat in the porch railing. Her eyes met his and she sped into his arms. Wetness from her cheeks seeped through his shirt.
Don't worry.
William stroked her hair and tried to calm her.
Everything will be okay.
You can't know that, she sobbed. She's so little.
She is, but she's also strong, and she has your father with her, remember?
He placed a hand under her chin and tilted her face up. Her eyes were red and swollen, her face mottled from crying.
I can't think of any doctor I'd trust more. Can you?
She shook her head and sniffed.
Good. Now the others are getting settled in, so why don't you dry your tears and we'll join them?
Emma nodded and took a few deep breaths. With each one, her shoulders pulled a little straighter. Finally, she nodded again and flashed a tight smile. Okay, I'm all right now. William knew this was only temporary. More emotion and more worry would hit her as the days went on, but he would take it for now.
Then allow me to show you your new home.
Emma's eyes widened as if she just realized what that meant. I'm sorry. I know you wanted this to be a surprise.
It's all right.
William offered a smile and pushed open the front door.
Life doesn't always turn out exactly as we planned.
He stepped back through the doorway and gestured to the open room.
This is the living room. It will look more homey once we have all the furniture, but it's just been me.
There was a wooden table and a few chairs at the far side of the room near the kitchen, and a couch frame that desperately needed some cushions in the living room. But otherwise, the space was devoid of furniture. It was not, however, empty of people, and Benjamin and Carrie rushed to Emma's side as she stepped in. It will be wonderful. Emma wrapped her arms around her siblings, and William could tell she hoped she wouldn't be wrong.